Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. A federal judge is scheduled to hold hearings in Pensacola, Florida Tuesday on whether a lawsuit filed by 20 states challenging the constitutionality of President Obama's health care overhaul should be allowed to go forward. Joining us is Florida Attorney General Bill McCollum, who filed Florida's suit only minutes after President Obama signed the bill into law back in March. Welcome back to Newsmax TV, Mr. Attorney General.
Good to be back with you. My pleasure.
The Obama administration will try to persuade a federal judge to throw out the suit. On what grounds do you believe it should go forward?
I think there's a cause of action, both for the individual mandate issue, which is where we are arguing that it's unconstitutional for the federal government to tell you if you're just sitting in front of your TV set or doing nothing in the way of real economic activity, that you have to buy a health insurance policy or else pay a penalty. That's just not in the Constitution. The Founding Fathers didn't enumerate any powers that appear to us to give them the right to say this. The government's going to argue the Commerce Clause is that far stretched, or this is a tax, and that's a little bit of an irony, too. Even if it's a tax, we think there's no provision in the Constitution allowing this kind of a tax, the one they're arguing for. But when President Obama advocated this legislation, he said there was no tax involved in it. So the government's being a little disingenuous, but they're going to make that kind of an argument in this hearing. And on top of that, we also have a question of the constitutionality of the requirement on the states to cover so many more people. You know, we almost 50%, a little under that, of the actual payments for Medicaid recipients come from the state coffers, from our own tax dollars. And they've added, the federal government, into this law, a tremendous number of new eligible people, and that's going to cost Florida over $1 billion a year more, and maybe more than that as time progresses. And nobody asked us about that. And so we have an argument this is a violation of the 10th Amendment, and I think it's a valid one. But that's what the debate's over. Have we stated a cause of action or not? And if we have, we get to go forward with the suit, and I think we will.
Now, according to published reports, federal attorneys plan to tell the court that states don't have standing to sue due to the supremacy of the federal government over states, and that it's up to individual taxpayers, not states, to challenge the law beginning in 2015 when it goes into effect. How do you intend to counter that?
Well, first of all, the individual mandate issue has individuals in the lawsuit, not just the state of Florida. We have two individuals, and we have the National Federation of Independent Business that are plaintiffs in this suit who are joined as parties along with the state of Florida. And they certainly have separate standing from us. We believe we do too, as parents patriae is sort of a legal term of art for taking care of our citizenry. But there are certain extensions of the rules of the game, so to speak, that exist, rather technical ones, but ones that we think would allow us to be a party to this and the court to rule in our favor. The courts did rule that standing was there for Virginia's case. They have a separate law up there, which we don't have in Florida, which makes it a little bit different. But we think we'll prevail on this, and we think we prevail if anybody has standing, the state of Florida gets to stay. In other words, if these individuals have the right to be there, we do. Now, again, the question about, well, this doesn't take effect till 2014 or 2015 is based on the assumption this is a tax law and that somehow we're prohibited under the federal rules of the game, or individuals are, from making a claim on that basis. But we don't think that this is under the taxing powers, that isn't how the law was written. So now you're, again, getting a very technical area, but that's the arguments, the type of arguments you're going to hear in court.
There is increased speculation that the law could be thrown out altogether because it doesn't include a severability clause. In other words, if one part of the law is found unconstitutional, it's a knockout blow and the whole thing would be declared unconstitutional. However, if the law contained a boilerplate and one part of the law was found unconstitutional, only that part of the law would then be struck. Do you expect the lack of the severability clause in Obamacare, do you expect that that will play into your favor?
Well, I certainly think at the end of the day it plays in our favor because it certainly is a fact that they have no severability clause. And if any portion of this we win on, then the whole law goes down. And I think that the courts are going to look at this as more as a whole. They're going to say, look, how does this all interplay? The state of Florida is certainly affected by every aspect of this. And our success in this, or lack of success in it as a state, is going to be very broadly looked upon. So I think we prevail on the arguments that we're making and that the court's going to see it that way. Now, all of this is going to be appealed. Whichever way this goes, not necessarily the ruling on our standing at the moment is, I don't think that'll be independently appealed, but the case itself is going to ultimately go to the U.S. Supreme Court. And those kind of issues will be raised again in front of that court. But I believe we will have this case in front of the U.S. Supreme Court within a couple of years.
Now, how confident are you that a judge won't toss out the suit, or at least parts of it?
Well, I'm pretty confident that he won't toss the whole thing out. I'm not as confident he might not pick a little piece here or there to toss out, because we've got quite a few pleadings in this case, so I suppose he could find one or two of them would not be as suitable as others. But I think on the major points we'll prevail, and certainly on the individual mandate, I think that, which is the centerpiece of this suit, I think that's going to go forward. But the judge won't rule on this, I don't think, the day of the hearing. I think he's going to hold back for a couple of days, and will be a little bit longer before we actually see how he rules. And then once he's done that, we'll file a motion for summary judgment, which will try to get this expedited and done without having to have an evidentiary hearing, which would take longer.
Now, Virginia's lawsuit has also been making headlines. What will the outcome of your case have on the Virginia suit?
Well, I think that the Virginia suit actually helps us, because we've got some arguments that we've gotten from that case and from the judge's ruling that are favorable to our position. On the other hand, they are a freestanding suit, a lawsuit. And while there is no question that one or both of us prevailing at one level or another helps the other one, it's very indirect at this point. The cases might well get put together before a Supreme Court hearing. I would not be surprised at all if they go up together. But they are separate, and they are free standing of each other.
Now, your term as Attorney General is set to expire early next year. You made a bid for governor, and now Republican Pam Bondi and Democrat Dan Gelber are squaring off for your seat. You talked about this going before the Supreme Court. It still has quite a ways to go. Do you expect to be involved in the suit moving forward once out of office, and if so, how?
Well, of course, I'm going to be interested in it. I'd like to be. I certainly would like to be an opinion leader on it. Whether I'm officially involved in any way remains to be seen. But I don't have any doubt that it will be carried there. Now, Gelber and Bondi have differing views on this suit. If Gelber were to prevail, he says he wants to dismiss Florida from the suit. I certainly hope that does not happen. On the other hand, it is going to go forward with 19 other states, whether Florida is in it or not. If Bondi prevails, then I think she'll take up the mantle and the cudgel, and it will go forward accordingly. So I'm optimistic about the suit going forward. As far as my role is involved in it, I may be sitting back and being a critic somewhere or making suggestions, but I'd like to believe that I'll at least be consulted as this goes forward, and hopefully will play some role more formally. But that's the best I know now, because there's no guarantee once I'm out of office that I have such a role.
All right, Florida Attorney General Bill McCollum, thanks so much for joining us here on Newsmax TV.
Thank you. You bet.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.